The late 2000s marked the beginning of an explosion in popularity for electronic dance music. A genre of music that had evolved out of the underground rave scene of the 90s was becoming mainstream. Artists like Tiesto, Daft Punk, deadmau5, and Calvin Harris were becoming household names, being featured on some of the world's largest festival stages and on the radio waves. In the midst of these changes, a new genre of house music would emerge that would push the EDM scene to new heights and leave a lasting impact for years to come. This is that music story. This is the history of Dirty Dutch. DJ Chucky created the Dirty Dutch name in 2003 as a way to create a platform where he would be able to play the various genres of music that he enjoyed. Typically, when he started DJing, clubs and promoters wanted him to stick to one genre of music per party, and these restrictions led to him feeling disillusioned and drove him to create his own platform.
Yeah, funny enough, Dirty Dutch wasn't even a genre, it was like a concept I started back in 2003 because I wanted to do my own events. So I wanted to do something like that represented me and also the Dutch street culture. So the dirty, I referred it to the streets actually.
Over various interviews, DJ Chucky has mentioned how his upbringing led to him enjoying a wide variety of music genres. In particular, he was exposed to a unique blend of American pop and hip-hop, alongside South and Latin American music during his early years in his birth nation of Suriname in South America. Later, at age 7, when his family moved to the Netherlands, he would be exposed to a variety of dance music genres through pirate radio stations from the UK, local record stores, and dance events.
Well, basically, growing up in South America, born in South America, I grew up with a lot of styles, different styles of music. Of course, with the Latin music, with Caribbean music, but also with what they used to play on the radio, American radio songs and stuff. So when I moved to Holland, obviously I had that background, and the way I discovered electronic music actually was through breakbeats. I discovered this pirate radio station from the UK, was broadcasting in Amsterdam, and I was like, wow, recording all that music. That's why probably The Prodigy will always be one of my favorite bands ever.
Initially, DJ Chucky started DJing hip-hop and urban music. However, his love for the variety of music of his youth led him to be an avid collector of records of various genres, from dance music including classic Chicago house, UK breakbeats, and European electro. Due to his popularity in the urban scene and knowledge of dance music, in 2003 he'd be approached by Dutch rave promoters ID&T, now well known for their Tomorrowland festival, to host a hip-hop stage for one of their events. And from there, the Dirty Dutch brand was born.
It was more interesting because we always wanted to work with ID&T because we were looking up to them. So, so crazy. In 2003, they approached us like, because I was making noise in the urban scene. Like, we're doing inner city and we would love for you to host one room. And so that's what we did, and that's how the whole thing with ID&T kicked off. And after that, we started doing Dirty Dutch with them.
DJ Chucky identified that the young people going to the clubs he was DJing at, like himself, enjoyed a wide variety of music. However, these clubs and promoters would often restrict the DJs to playing either urban or dance music. DJ Chucky knew that his platform would be successful because it would appeal to the younger demographic that was growing used to mixing music due to new technologies like the iPod.
Because back then they just introduced iPod.
Yeah.
And I couldn't imagine that you had one iPod with only one style of music. Impossible. So I said, okay, I'm gonna try to appeal to the iPod generation, and such as myself, listen to different styles of music.
Over the next few years, Chucky would continue to grow his Dirty Dutch brand. And in 2005, he would host his first Dirty Dutch dance event at the Heineken Music Hall to 6,000 guests. However, as he DJ'd more and more, he began to experiment with creating his own edits, remixes, and original productions. He would find some success in these early productions, garnering him radio airplay in the Netherlands and support from DJs like Hardwell, Laidback Luke, and David Guetta. On a bit of a funny side note, while doing research, I came across the music video for one of these songs, called Slack the How, on YouTube, and I'm pretty sure it has nudity in it, but it's uploaded in 240p, and I think YouTube missed it because the video is such low resolution. The music video and song draw a lot of inspiration from the Prodigy's Smack My Bitch Up, with both songs featuring fairly derogatory lyrics and a music video that are both POV shots of various debauchery. By 2008, his Dirty Dutch shows had grown to a point where they had to move to the much larger Rai Amsterdam Convention Center to host 20,000 guests. That same year, he would be invited to play one of the biggest festivals in the Netherlands called Sensation White to more than 40,000 fans. By this time, DJ Chucky was considered by some to be one of the biggest DJs in the Netherlands, putting him in the company of the likes of Tiesto and Armin van Buuren.
You mentioned some of the gigs, but if you have to choose one of your most memorable gigs.
2008 Sensation.
Okay.
I must say, because a lot of things happened. First of all, 2008, and people, you can ask anybody in the Netherlands, 2008, name the top 3 biggest DJs in the Netherlands,
Tiesto, Armin.
Yeah, and no, they were like international, but
Yeah.
I was like, I want to say a local hero, but
Yeah.
not even in electronic music, just in general,
Yeah.
So it was a matter of time for me that I had to play at Sensation.
By 2008, Dirty Dutch had its first superstar DJ. However, in the early months of 2009, Dirty Dutch would get its first international hit.
Let the bass kick.
Released in 2007 and distributed as part of the Sensation White compilation album in 2008, Let the Bass Kick would end up in the hands of American DJ Infinity, who created a mashup using the vocals from LMFAO's I'm in Miami Bitch. DJ Infinity would then distribute this mashup to several DJs prior to the 2009 edition of the Winter Music Conference in Miami. The song would end up taking over the weekend, being played by the likes of Swedish House Mafia, David Guetta, and Paul van Dyk, and would become the motto for the weekend, being screamed by crowds across the city.
The track that kind of blew me up in the States was definitely Let the Bass Kick in Miami. When I made the track, it was like an instrumental, like a real club record, right? And then this DJ from Chicago, it's funny, called DJ Infinity, he took the acapella from LMFAO and put it over my beat, and then, sent it to me and sent it to a lot of people. And I was like, yo, I kind of like it. So I spoke to LMFAO, I'm like, yo, let's make it an original version. They were cool with it, so that's what we did, and it ended up being like one of the main tracks of the WMC like 2 years ago. It was funny how it actually started, so I'm really happy with that. And I think that record kind of opened the doors for a lot of people, I'd say.
Let the Bass Kick would not only launch DJ Chucky onto the worldwide EDM scene, it would also introduce the world to a new style of Dutch house music. Interestingly, during an interview, DJ Chucky specifically called out a track by German techno artist Roman Flugel called Gate Notch as a source of inspiration for the high-pitched sounds that would come to define the Dirty Dutch genre.
Because in Holland, we called it pancake house, and everybody kind of made it kind of funny, and it wasn't really a style, until, I must say, I think around 2001, there was this German techno record by this guy called Roman Flugel, track called Gate Notch. Yeah. And the way he dealt with the pitch bending, that changed the whole game for every single producer here in Holland.
He also mentioned being inspired by something called pancake house. And I probably spent 4 hours researching it, but all I could find is that it was a derogatory term that was seen as songs that were flat or cheesy, and I couldn't find any good examples of it, but it's something to be said. But getting back on track, Chucky wouldn't be the only producer to see success with this new Dutch sound in 2009. You had tracks like Laidback Luke's remix of Been a Long Time, with its plucky bass line contrasted against its offbeat bleeps. You had Nom de Strip's remix of Noise, with its almost bubbly bleeps and its non-4 on the floor beat pattern.
What's that noise?
You had Vandalism and Anger Demus's She's Got It with its Latin-style beat and fast-paced bleeps. While some of these songs would have success in the underground dance scene, it would be Sidney Samson that would get the next international hit with his song Riverside.
Riverside, motherfucker.
Produced in early 2008, the song would see initial success in the dance music scene, being played by the likes of David Guetta and Laidback Luke. But it wouldn't be until its official release in 2009 that it would be picked up by the BBC and would soon see mainstream success, charting at number 2 in the UK at the time of its release. Sidney Samson already had a strong connection with the Dirty Dutch scene, having been invited by DJ Chucky to play at the 2007 edition of his Dirty Dutch event at the Heineken Music Hall. So despite not being released on Chucky's Dirty Dutch label, many people were considering it as part of the new Dirty Dutch sound.
And all of a sudden, they labeled it Dirty Dutch, which was my luck because Dirty Dutch is also my brand, so it worked for me. Eventually, we kind of figured it out, you know. So I had led the bass gig. Sidney Samson made it work with Riverside, you know. Afrojack made it work for him, and I think Laidback Luke as well had a couple of big tracks.
Interestingly, while I couldn't find any interviews confirming it, the lead synth of Riverside sounds fairly similar to the lead synth of Gate Knock, the track that DJ Chucky pointed to as inspiration. So I imagine this old school techno track helped to inspire both these early pioneers of the Dirty Dutch sound. But regardless of the inspiration, Dirty Dutch had made a name for itself on the global dance music scene. However, it would soon be revolutionized by a new and upcoming producer.
Turn up the bass!
Having started producing music in the early 2000s, Afrojack had long been active in the Dutch house scene. And by 2006, he was regularly DJing at his home city of Rotterdam. Along the way, he had a couple of successful original tracks, like Fuck Detroit and Drop It Down with the Party Squad.
Drop down now. Drop down.
However, he would enter the story of Dirty Dutch in 2008 with his remix of DJ Chucky's track Moomba. The song featured a quick and sharp bleep as its lead synth, along with a powerful compressed drum kick that would revolutionize the emerging Dirty Dutch genre. The song was a huge success in the EDM scene and generated support from the likes of David Guetta, Laidback Luke, and Diplo. Because of Afrojack's Dutch nationality, and the fact that this new refined sound was coming out on Chucky's Dirty Dutch label, the song was labeled by many as the defining sound of the Dirty Dutch genre.
It was funny when I was talking to Afrojack back then. He's like, yeah man, everybody's saying Pancake House. He said, I'ma make it cool. And he did it, you know, and he did the remix of Moomba. I remember there's a Hardwell and the Rehab remix. They did more of a tech house thing, and Afrojack said like, no, I'm doing this. And I remember the record has like a 15-second intro. I'm like, yo, come on, dude. I need at least a 1 minute mix or something, you know, for the house. He's like, no, this is what it is. I'm like, okay, I'll roll with it.
I spent a decent amount of time trying to determine what exactly inspired Afrojack to use this new bleep sound, and unfortunately, I wasn't able to find anything conclusive. From one interview I found, it sounds like he's pretty reluctant to reveal the specifics of his inspirations. However, the few inspirations I was able to find included Daft Punk, Benny Benassi, and Deadmau5, and these inspirations are definitely apparent in some of his early productions. That being said, his track Fuck Detroit does have a bit of a bleepy synth.
Our lovely city.
So perhaps he was revisiting this sound when he was working on his remix of Moomba. Also, in the previous interview with DJ Chucky, he seemed to imply that Afrojack said he was trying to make Pancake House cool. Perhaps he was trying to make a sound that was considered by some to be cheesy, so big and high energy that people would have no option but to like it. Well, that's enough speculation. Over the following 3 years, Afrojack would continue to improve and refine this sound by amping up the energy and the intensity of his songs. Songs like his remix of Satisfaction would add a choppiness to the Dirty Dutch bleeps that showed how they could be used to add pace and energy to a track.
Satisfaction.
Songs like Bang Duck would incorporate more powerful and dramatic pitch bends on top of the distinctive Dirty Dutch bleeps, as well as a massive kick that was like nothing people had heard of at the time. To give you an idea of how big this song was at the time, here's what it did to a 2010 camera phone. And volume warning for my people wearing headphones. Similarly to DJ Chucky, Afrojack was also inspired by urban and Latin sounds, and he would incorporate them into his tracks to great success. For example, his song Ziggy would feature an iconic sample from Lil Wayne's A Milli. And on the Latin front, Afrojack's remix of Sidney Samson's Riverside featured a prominent Latin groove. Many of these songs were massive hits in the EDM scene, garnering support from some of the world's biggest DJs like Laidback Luke, David Guetta, and Tiesto. Beyond the revolution of the Dirty Dutch genre, Afrojack was also in general a master of production, and over the same period of time he would also release tracks that had impacts on several different genres of EDM. Songs like Polka Dots, Pacha on Acid, and his remix of Show Me Love would all be hits in the house, tech house, and acid house scenes. By the late 2000s, Afrojack was one of the fastest rising stars in the dance music scene. However, in 2010, Afrojack would release a track that would elevate him and the Dirty Dutch genre to worldwide success.
Plug it in and turn me on.
Take Over Control had a perfect balance of pop music appeal with its vocals and progressive interlude, and EDM energy with its aggressive drop and fast-paced Dutch bleeps. And this allowed it to cross over to mainstream success in a way that had never been seen before. The song would hit number 1 on the US dance music charts and even peaked at number 24 on the mainstream US top 40.
Take Over Control has just been massive on the radio. It's personally one of my favorite songs just in general. I know we talked earlier and you said you knew that was going to be a powerhouse.
I didn't know it was going to be a powerhouse, but I did know for sure with the combination of the happiness of the chords, the vocals, and the bleeps. Like, if I didn't do the bleeps, it would probably be a way bigger hit, because then you wouldn't scare the people in Middle America or Canada with the bleepy stuff. They're like,
right,
what's that sound? But I wanted it to be like the first. There wasn't a track on the radio that had bleeps in it, you know, or like the new. There wasn't hardly any music that had certain drops in it, like a build-up and a drop, and that's what dance music is all about. And I thought, let's try and make a really radio-friendly track, but still with a nice, crazy drop. And it worked, and I was really happy about it.
The fact that the song kept most of the high-energy vibe that dance music was known for meant it was still well received by the underground dance music community, something that previous dance songs that had seen mainstream success had failed to do. As a result of this success, Afrojack would perform on some of the biggest stages in the EDM scene, from the main stages of EDC, Ultra Music Festival, and Tomorrowland. By 2010, Dirty Dutch had made an impact on the mainstream music scene, and over the next few years, it would hit its peak in popularity.
Tonight, I will not love you tonight. Give me everything tonight. For all we know, we might not get tomorrow. Let's do it tonight.
While Afrojack may have been the strongest force pushing the Dirty Dutch genre, several others from inside and outside of Dutch house scene began to contribute to its growth. From the clubs to the festival stages and the radio waves, Dirty Dutch was expanding on all fronts. In the clubs, you had tracks like Quintino and Alvaro's Can You Feel It, with its effect-heavy bleeps and Latin grooves. You had tracks like Sandro Silva's remix of Tequila, with its thumping offbeat kick and more percussive bleeps. Or Ferruccio Salvo and Rehab's Keep Up For Your Love, with its heavily compressed beats cutting through its Latin groove. These tracks would continue to grow the early style of Dirty Dutch, created by tracks like DJ Chucky's Let the Bass Kick and Sidney Sampson's Riverside. This style of Dirty Dutch would see success in the more underground EDM scene, and would get support from the likes of David Guetta, Laidback Luke, and DJ Chucky. Speaking of DJ Chucky, he would also release another club-style collaboration with Gregor Salto, called What Happens in Vegas, in order to capitalize on his new DJ residency at the Marquee nightclub in Las Vegas, as well as EDC moving to Las Vegas in 2011.
Well, yes, the whole track is inspired by Vegas. I have a residency in New York, Miami, and Las Vegas, and you know, they always say what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas, you know, so I was like, I need to do something with that, and this is how it started. So I teamed up with my buddy Gregor Salto, and we did this track called What Happens in Vegas. It's totally inspired by Vegas.
DJ Chucky was quickly becoming one of the world's biggest DJs. On top of the Vegas residency, he also held residency at Pacha in Ibiza, Lavo in New York, and Live in Miami. And he was also a monthly radio host on BBC Radio 1's show In New DJs We Trust. DJ Chucky would also have continued success hosting his annual Dirty Dutch Music Festival at the RAI Amsterdam Convention Center. And in 2010 and 2012, he would host 2 shows due to increased demand. As well, in 2012, he was also asked to host a stage at Tomorrowland's sister festival, Mysteryland, in the Netherlands.
Chucky, my man, how are you?
I'm doing fine. I just played on the main stage, 1.5 hour set. And for me, it's always an honor to play at Tomorrowland, the #1 dance event in the world. So it's been great.
Yeah, you were here last year, right? Also on the main stage.
I was here last year, the year before, and I'm still here. Tomorrow, I have my own stage, Smash the House versus Dirty Dutch.
Oh,
the reason why, because Smash the House always got a stage on Tomorrowland, and I always got my own stage on Mysteryland in Holland. So we decided to clash.
How cool is that? You have your own stage on a festival.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's a little bit more intimate, and the people go they go nuts.
Yeah.
Nuts.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like that club vibe, you create. So yeah, I'm having fun.
Dirty Dutch was quickly becoming a mainstay on the main stage for major festivals, as Afrojack's Revolution kicked off an arms race of producers continuing to push the intensity of their tracks. Tracks like Sidney Sampson's The World Is Yours, which took the Dutch bleep and slowly pitch-bent the sound up and down across the drop, while incorporating a choppy beat pattern.
The world is yours.
You had tracks like Laidback Luke's remix of Dirty Tot, which featured a massive kick. I mean, look at this waveform.
Damn, boy, he's thick! Boy, that's a thick-ass boy!
You also had tracks like Anger Demas's bootleg of Pat the Dutchie with its fast-paced BPM. And finally, you had Afrojack's Fatality, which featured a back and forth between fast-paced bleeps and big pitch bends. These tracks would help Dirty Dutch take over the main stages of some of the biggest festivals in the world, with the likes of EDC's 2011 Kinetic Field featuring Afrojack, Rehab, and Sidney Sampson. Ultra Miami's main stage included both Afrojack and Laidback Luke, and Tomorrowland's main stage would feature Chucky, Afrojack, and Laidback Luke as well. However, beyond the clubs and the festivals of the dedicated EDM scene, Dirty Dutch would continue to have success with mainstream music. This success drew attention from several artists outside of the Netherlands to utilize the Dirty Dutch sound. Perhaps the most noteworthy would be LMFAO with their song Party Rock Anthem, which featured the distinctive Dirty Dutch bleeps and a fast-paced energy.
Shake that.
The song would be extremely successful in America and would even peak at number 1 on the US Top 40 charts. The song would also inspire a generation of American ravers to begin shuffling. Back in Europe and beyond the individual Dirty Dutch tracks, one of the big drivers of the genre's success was David Guetta. David had crossed over to mainstream success during the late 2000s, and he saw a growing trend of new music coming out of the Netherlands, and he wanted to take this sound international. He would frequently feature these new Dirty Dutch tracks in his mixed compilation albums, his weekly radio shows, and his Ibiza live shows.
And so this is an important part in EDM history, because I was producing with David Guetta when all of a sudden he got phone calls from Dr. Dre and from will.i.am.
Yeah. It was becoming pop music.
Exactly. So, mind you, this was when there was no dance music crossing over in America yet.
No.
And David was obsessed with the Dutch house music, and he's like, what you guys are doing in this country, I want this internationally, and I want to hook some rappers up. And obviously, you know, one can argue, did he do that right? Because, you know, the commercial version sounded differently than what we originally had intended. But it is absolutely a fact that EDM got big in America because of these type of mashing up with the rappers and the big record labels.
Yeah.
He worked closely with both DJ Chucky and Afrojack, with the pair doing a series of remixes on his One Love album. However, it was his ability to introduce the pair to other major pop artists that was key to their growth in the mainstream. For DJ Chucky, these connections would lead to work with Enrique Iglesias, Lil Jon, and the king of pop himself, Michael Jackson.
And right now it's going really well, you know. I think my biggest achievement so far was doing a remix for Michael Jackson. Wow. Yes, it's incredible. When they called me, I was really in shock, you know. And now, but you know, and then you're not really surprised anymore. I did some remixes for Enrique Iglesias, you know.
I love Enrique Iglesias.
Yeah, really great guy too. And right now I just finished a remix for Kelly Rowland, and I'm gonna do the new Rihanna single and Katy Perry.
Okay.
Some interesting stuff coming, and also my own album, working on my own album right now, and should be finished by the end of the year, and I will drop the first records like beginning of next year.
For Afrojack, these connections would lead to one of the most successful Dirty Dutch tracks of all times, Give Me Everything, with Pitbull and Neo. After the success of Take Over Control, Afrojack knew that there was further opportunity to mix the underground Dutch sound with pop music sensibilities, and he would be right. The song would be massively successful, reaching number 1 on the US Top 40 for 3 weeks, and would even be the 7th most downloaded digital song of 2011. However, beyond this peak in popularity, Dirty Dutch would go on to leave a lasting impact on the dance music scene.
Turn up the speakers.
While 2011 was likely the peak of popularity for Dirty Dutch music, that wasn't the end of its influence on the EDM scene. Its sounds, artists, and energy would go on to create new genres of music and continue to push the EDM scene to new heights over the next several years. One of the more well-documented examples of this is the story of the creation of Moombahton. Dave Nada was DJing a senior skip party which featured a lot of Latin and reggaeton music when he decided to play Afrojack's remix of Moomba. However, he decided to slow it down and play it at 110 BPMs, like the other tracks that were being played at the party. And when the drop hit and the crowd went wild, he knew he wanted to make new music just like it.
How did Moombaton start? I was DJing this party, and I didn't want to fuck up the groove of the dance floor, and I was like, well, I got all these crazy like Dutch house, tropical house records, and I was like, they always kind of sounded like fast reggaeton to me anyhow, so I slowed them down. Kids went crazy, and I was like, shit, I want to make some edits and like, you know, have this kind of, you know, Dutch tropical house sound with like reggaeton elements, and I made a bunch of edits. TNA Records put them out as promos, like online for free, and like just spiraled from there.
This new style of music would go on to inspire several other artists like Dylan Francis and Moonchi. The Dirty Dutch bleeps are still frequently used with this genre. One example of this is Moonchi's Esta Noche.
Let's dance.
A little less well-known example of Dirty Dutch's influence comes from a genre that emerged from halfway across the world, in Australia. A style of music called Melbourne Bounce, which features highly compressed, bouncy, offbeat bass lines, found that the high-pitched Dutch bleeps would be a perfect match.
Back it up now, let me see your hips sway.
One of the early leaders of the sound, Joel Fletcher, mentions that LA artist Dioro brought the Dutch sound to the genre, while Dioro himself has mentioned that he was trying to emulate artists like Afrojack while he was learning how to produce music.
Yeah, so back then it was like more of a minimal kind of sound, just kick and bass, and like now it has that whole Dutch element to it, which kind of came from Dioro, I think. Right. He added a big flavour to it. And then Will came in and put his own taste on it as well.
You know, I used to be like a little embarrassed about it, but now, you know, I encourage people to mimic. You know, if you want to do it, mimic it, so you can get an idea how it feels to perform or to do what someone is already doing. Yeah. And then it's a good place to start, because then from that point you can develop your own thing. You know,
100%. Yeah.
So like that's how. I mean, I used to remake a lot of Afrojack songs, you know, like, and that taught me a lot.
Speaking of Dioro, one funny thing I found during my research was a Dirty Dutch mix from 2010 under his old alias called Tonic. And this actually leads into something interesting, which is that around the time Dirty Dutch came to popularity, several low-cost digital DJ programs such as Tractor and Serato were released that significantly lowered the barrier of entry for DJing. And I think Dirty Dutch was in a unique place that many of these new DJs chose to make dedicated mixes to this new style of music. DJ programs weren't the only thing getting cheaper. Digital production tools like Fruity Loops and Ableton would also release and proliferate during the mid and late 2000s. And similarly, these new tools would help lower the barrier of entry for many of the artists working in the Dirty Dutch scene. Afrojack in particular has frequently mentioned how Fruity Loops helped him achieve success while working out of his childhood bedroom. On top of these new tools becoming available to a new generation of bedroom producers and DJs, the rise of YouTube and internet forums helped to spread a whole library of information to these new artists and push the overall quality of the EDM scene as a whole. One extremely important example of this comes from Laidback Luke's production forum, which helped to improve the music of artists like Afrojack, Avicii, and Swedish House Mafia. Honestly, I think this forum probably is worth a whole video on its own.
What I'm most proud of is the amount of people that I've helped in this industry, the talents that were on my forum, and a lot of big names. Obviously, I just mentioned Steve Angelo, but more and more.
Afrojack.
Afrojack. Mickey Romero was on the forum as well, and we had this another unknown Swedish guy popping up on my forum one day, and he really wanted to get heard.
Oh yeah.
His music didn't really sound great, but I thought, you know what, I see something in this kid, and that was Avicii.
Yeah.
And so two of my proudest accomplishments, I would say, are Avicii and Afrojack.
Yeah.
And I have a ton of talents under that, in which I'm also very proud of. But to just be able to be a part of their story is incredible, and these guys have become so mega.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Many of the artists that developed their skills during the Dirty Dutch movement would continue to innovate and influence dance music. And perhaps the biggest of these innovations would come from a pair of Dirty Dutch veterans, Quintino and Sandro Silva, with their track Epic. This track would kick off the big room house craze of the mid-2010s. As I mentioned previously, Afrojack's early Dirty Dutch tracks would basically kick off an arms race as many artists attempt to make bigger and bigger sounds. And these bigger sounds would begin to influence this new emerging genre of big room house. And artists such as Afrojack, Alvaro, and DJ Chucky would all contribute to this new genre of music in the following years. One final thing I noticed about Dirty Dutch before we shift to wrapping up this video. While doing my research, I looked into the music that dominated electro house prior to the rise of Dirty Dutch. And one thing I noticed that was electro house in the late 90s and early 2000s tended to focus on heavy distorted bass lines. A couple examples of this were songs like Daft Punk's Defunct from 1997, Benny Benassi's Satisfaction in 2002, and Klaus's remix of Where's Your Head At from 2008. And this was a stark contrast to the more kick and percussion focused style of Dirty Dutch, and the major styles of electro house that came afterwards. This flipping of taste in electro house music occurred just as Dirty Dutch was emerging onto the EDM scene. And while Dirty Dutch was not the only force that was driving this change, I do think in a lot of ways it was at the center of it. Dirty Dutch helped to bring electro house style builds and drops to the mainstream with songs like Take Over Control. It helped to bring new artists into the fold with the helps of the likes of Afrojack, Laidback Luke, and DJ Chucky, and it helped to inspire a generation of bedroom DJs and producers to enjoy and work with EDM music. That being said, by the mid-2010s, Dirty Dutch would begin to fade from public consciousness. Many of the artists that were known for the sound grew tired of having worked with it for several years. Occasionally, some of them would return to the Dirty Dutch bleep. One recent example of this comes from Afrojack and Hardwell's collaboration called Push It. However, just like the flip that occurred during the late 2000s, another flip in taste in electro house would occur during the mid to late 2010s, as artists wanted to return to a more traditional style of house music, with sounds that focused more on big, plucky bass lines, with the future house genre pioneered by the likes of Oliver Heldens and Tchami perhaps being the best example. However, returning our story to where it started with DJ Chucky, he would host his last Dirty Dutch dance event at the Heineken Music Hall in 2015. And he would end up hosting a new festival in his new home of Aruba in 2016 called Electric Festival, which was a partnership with the Amsterdam Dance Event. While at this time, from what I can see, Dirty Dutch Records hasn't released a track in almost a year. However, DJ Chucky himself still remains active, DJing and releasing his own remixes and original music. Well, ravers, thank you so much for watching this video, and I truly appreciate it. Dirty Dutch was one of the genres that helped me fall in love with EDM music, so researching it and sharing the songs that I liked and the things that I learned was a ton of fun. If you enjoyed the video, please do the typical YouTube things and leave a like, and if you have any questions or would like to recommend future genres for me to look into, please leave a comment down below. While this video was probably a little bit big for my first project, like I said, I had a lot of fun doing it, and I think I already have an idea for my next project. So if you would like to know about future projects and when they come out, go ahead and subscribe and turn on the notification. I promise I won't be bothering you every day. Well, until next time, stay raving and enjoy the music, guys.